IVM.
All right, welcome to another awesome episode of IVM Likes. I'm your host Antariksh. Joining me today is my co-host Zalak. Hi Zalak, how are you doing?
Hi, I'm doing good. How are you doing?
This is fantastic. I'm doing well.
And today we are joined by two people actually.
Yes, we are.
Amit Doshi, the founder of IVM,
Woo.
and Pavan Srinath. He's the host of Thalle Harate, and he's
Woo.
also with the IVM regional growth team.
I can already see Pavan smiling because I know what he's gonna say. He's gonna crib that nobody knows how to pronounce Thalle Harate properly.
Please correct me.
Antariksh, you did a better job,
I did?
and honestly, I've given up by
Oh.
now.
Oh,
But I
okay.
must tell you guys, I was a part of the Asia Podcast Festival last week, and they did a better job than most IBM people. So we
What do
need
you
to
say?
change that.
Oh man,
That's a shame.
we should get them on IVM. Get them to work for us.
Yeah, I'm getting nervous here right now. I'm just trying to think. Thalle harate, thalle hardate, thalle harte.
Thale. Thale.
Thalle.
Thalle. Okay, so
Thale.
it's the thalle part that I'm getting wrong. It's not the second
Yeah,
part.
thale.
I always thought it was the
Even
second
that.
part.
Ignore
Zalak-
the H.
Zalak and I need not feel as bad if even Amit is getting it wrong. We don't need to be that concerned.
Yes.
All right, welcome, Pavan. Welcome, Amit. Thank you so much for joining us.
Mhm.
It's good to see you guys back on the podcast after a while. It's been a while.
Mhm.
Today, we'll be talking about. So, there's a new show on Amazon Prime that you both have watched. The first 3 episodes of, I assume, because the first 3
Yes.
episodes are out. The show is called The Wheel of Time. It's adapted from the book series called The Wheel of Time of the same name. And Amit came to me really excited yesterday, and he was like, "Man, there's this new show. It's been getting some hate, but I'll love it." Right? Am I right to say that?
Did I say that?
That's what-
don't
that's
know
what I
how
assumed.
I spoke.
No.
But yeah, that is the intent of what I
Yes,
said.
correct. That is what Amit
And
meant to say.
it's not getting hate.
It's not getting hate.
It's not getting it's 70% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Okay,
It's
that's not bad.
it's 7.8 on IMDb.
That's a
There's
good
no
show.
hate.
Yeah.
You know what there
It's
is?
bad.
What?
There is a bunch of over entitled Indian reviewers who are writing shit about
Ah.
this show without really understanding what is the background of fantasy. That's what's happening over here.
Okay.
They think fantasy means Game of Thrones, and they are looking at this and they're seeing this as a weak imitation of Game of Thrones.
Okay,
Where this and Game of Thrones are so different, it's not even funny.
I get it. You know, okay. We'll talk about all of that on this episode after this very short break. We'll be right back.
$100. That's all it takes to begin your journey with Bitcoin and Ethereum. No, really. With CoinSwitch, you can start investing in over 100 cryptocurrencies with just 100 rupees. On top of that, there are zero charges for deposits and withdrawals, so you can trade, buy, sell, however and whenever you want. All of this, plus their extremely intuitive interface, makes CoinSwitch the perfect app for beginners in the crypto space. But don't take my word for it. Just download CoinSwitch for free and try it out for yourself. If you'd like more information on cryptocurrencies, tune into a show about crypto with me, Rohan Joshi, my new adventure on IVM podcasts. CoinSwitch, kuch to badlega.
All right, and we are back talking about The Wheel of Time, the TV show, and other live action fantasy book adaptations coming up on this episode. So, starting with The Wheel of Time, Amit has already told us that it's not been getting as much hate as we thought it was, because that's what I assumed when Amit told me that it's not as well received as he would have liked it to have been. Am I fair to say that?
I guess that is true. But see, again, the thing here is this, right? The Wheel of Time is particularly personal to me.
Okay.
I have spent a lot of time reading it. It's
Okay.
14 books, and there are 14 long books,
Wow.
and I've read them more than once.
Oh,
And
okay.
I-
God.
Oh,
Amit, when
how
did you
long?
get started?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I got started in 2005 or 6 when Knife of Dreams, the 11th book, came out.
Okay, that's roughly around the same time as me. So,
Yeah.
again, context, guys, for everyone before the TV show, the book series, right? So, Robert Jordan is the pen name of the person who's written it, but he's known to everyone as Robert Jordan. He started writing the book series in 1990. That's when the first book came out.
Yeah.
Okay. And I also started in 2006, by the
Oh.
way. It was my first time visiting the US, went to a public library, found these wonderful hardbound fantasy novels, which I could never ever see or afford in my life. And that's how I started. And this is all, once you've read The Lord of the Rings and you've gotten sort of the fantasy bite and you want to move beyond sort of young adult fiction, the Harry Potters, the Artemis Fowls, and the whoever's of the world, to me, Wheel of Time was the next thing that I discovered. So
I think that entire sentence was for Pavan to let us know that he has read The Lord of the Rings. Amit, have you read Lord of the Rings? That's
No.
a no. That's fine. That's fine. We haven't.
I've tried 3 times and
Really?
I can't get past the point at which they get to Mordor. I just
Okay,
can't get
I
past
have
it.
read The
How
Hobbit.
old were you
but not
when
not
you
really.
first tried?
So the first time I tried was in college. The second time I tried I was probably 27, 28. The third time I tried was about 10 years ago. But again, I've been reading all of this fiction as an adult, right? The Wheel of Time was my first true exposure to adult fantasy fiction. I had read Harry Potter before that. I had read the Jonathan Stroud Bartimaeus trilogy.
Yeah, I love. Oh man, nobody's read those.
Yeah.
You know, the
Dude,
powers, I always feel power system in that book, the magic system is so unique.
Yeah.
Because they have to conjure creatures from another world, from another dimension.
It's not that unique, but yeah, it was very
Oh, is
cool.
it?
It was
Okay,
really
very
fun.
cool.
It was really fun.
That's
It
the
was,
only,
I
that's the
loved
most
them.
unique take I've seen.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't read others.
No, but I mean, since then, fantasy's become my predominant kind of genre. I read mostly fantasy, science fiction. I read crime from a few novelists who I do enjoy, and I read nonfiction, right?
I know you recently gotten into Chinese crime novels.
They're Chinese fantasy novels.
Chinese fantasy novels.
Yeah, they're
okay.
fantasy. They're basically the martial arts fantasy novels.
Oh, wow.
That's interesting.
Yeah, they're amazing. But no, but you know what? The reason I was saying that the Wheel of Time thing is personal to me is because it's how I started podcasting.
Okay.
The first thing I did in podcasting was a friend of mine, or I guess like an online friend or something. So there was this website called Library Thing, which was similar to what Goodreads was. It was a place to catalog the things that you read, and also there were a bunch of discussion forums. So the two of us used to get into these long discussions and arguments over Wheel of Time stuff, right? And this was I think 2007 or something like that. So
This is almost before YouTube, is it?
So it was around YouTube time. So I think there was YouTube at this point in time. I think there was, so the thing is at this point in time, 2 of the most popular podcasts on Apple's, and Apple was the only place where you saw podcast charts at that time, were basically these Harry Potter podcasts.
Oh, wow.
There was a podcast called Mugglecast and there was another podcast called Pottercast. And the 2 of us were discussing such deep discussions about the Wheel of Time, right? In terms of, but this Aja is like this, and if this person's doing this, then this is what this means. And
Where were you posting this stuff?
Library Thing.
On Library Thing.
So Library Thing had forums in addition to cataloging your books. I started using it to catalog my book reading, but then I started using the forums over there, and as part of that, we started having these discussions, and they were really, really long. It wasn't it was like both of us were writing pages at a time, talking to each other about this stuff. And so then we kind of said, let's try this podcasting thing out, right? And so we did this using Skype. And we did this using basically there was a thing called Skype recorder because for whatever reason you couldn't use voice recorder the way you use today. So you had to get something which recorded Skype specifically, right?
Wow.
And we kind of did that from that, and then I built a website.
Are you still in touch with that other friend of yours?
It's been a few years. But he's
Is he still
But
in
is your
podcasting or
podcast
something?
up?
No, because I decided to. At some point, I stopped paying for it. Everything was
Okay.
it was all paid. This right. I have the files somewhere, but I stopped paying for the hosting. And I haven't gotten back to doing it yet. But I was thinking of this.
What was the name of your show?
So it was called the Whatcast. The WOTCAST.
Oh,
Since
nice.
then, there was another Whatcast that came out after our show went down and the website went down, right? After somebody else started another Whatcast. But yeah, what as in Wheel of Time, what?
Wheel of Time, yeah. Wheel of Time, nice.
Yeah. So yeah, that's why I kind of feel I have strong feelings about the Wheel of Time.
This is why you wanted to do this episode.
Yeah, really.
Go
Makes
back.
sense. This all makes sense. I think we can
Discuss
all
the
just
story.
leave now. This is Amit by himself.
No, I just want to tell everybody this story, right? I don't think I've ever told anybody about this, that this is where it really started. So I thought this would be a good
absolutely.
place to kind of tell the story.
Exclusive
Wow.
content
So it's
right
also-
I had
here.
no idea.
Origin story of IVM.
Yeah.
Like a prequel origin story. It's not even an origin story. It's a prequel story.
This is Iron Man 1 of IVM.
This was I think we stopped doing it like 5 years before IVM was even a thing. So I
Which
think
is why
Yeah,
it's a
so is your-
prequel story.
Is your friend still in podcasting? Is entertainment?
no.
showbiz?
So he's a banker, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's a
Okay.
banker. South Africa guy, based in South Africa, and
Okay.
yeah, he's a banker. Marco van der Merwe.
Okay, wow.
Interesting.
Crazy. What about you, Pavan? Are you this much of a fan of Wheel of
I
Time?
mean, I'm that much of a fan of epic fantasy. Even today, the only things that I read that are in book form are either historical fiction or epic fantasy fiction. Some science fiction, right? And nothing that's literary fiction, nothing contemporary, now some of these genres are all blending and they're
Hmm.
expanding, right? So there's Ted Chiang doing speculative things like that, but I am still in that trend when it comes to my reading. But that's also what I enjoy when I'm playing role-playing games or watching TV. I mean, like, I'm waiting for a good fantasy TV show adaptation, right? And I think we still haven't, for people who have no idea what the Wheel of Time is, we've spent a lot of time on this episode
Yeah.
not telling people what the Wheel of
I will
Time
get
is
to that.
and why they should watch it.
That's gonna be my second to next question. What I want to ask you guys is, clearly you guys read a lot, especially compared to me. I don't know, Zalak, how much?
No, not really.
Not
Not
okay.
sci-fi at
Yeah,
least.
fair enough. So, what according to you makes a good live action adaptation of a book? Is it to do with is it just like likable actors? Is it to do with how closely they stick to the plot? Is it to do with the choosing of what to show and what not to show from the book? Or is it just like a mix of that and nobody really knows what works and what doesn't?
See, I think it's better to talk about this abstract question with examples, right?
Sure.
Because the number of examples of fantasy adaptations into any live form can be, the good ones or at least even the passable ones can be counted probably on one hand. Maybe you have to use a couple of fingers on your second hand. That's it, right? I mean, like, to me, it's that
really,
few.
how do you even get to the full hand? I'm just trying to think. I can't think of that many.
Look, if I include movies, right? It's not just TV. So
Huh.
there is Game of Thrones,
Yeah.
which is fantasy-esque.
And last season you wouldn't count in that good adaptation part.
Yeah, I wouldn't. There's The Witcher, which you can say it's
Yeah,
a book
okay.
adaptation, but it's also sort of a video game adaptation, but
yeah.
it's fantasy.
Yeah.
There's a Lord of the Rings movies. Well, you have to count the Harry Potter movies
have
as
to,
yeah.
some kind of fantasy magic
Yeah.
element thing. There's the failed, disastrous Aragon, bad
Man,
book, worst movie.
No,
Still,
but so that doesn't count as good, right? I'm
No, it
like, how do you
doesn't.
get to full five
Five-
fingers on your
like
on
5 good ones, you mean? Okay.
Yeah, again, the rest are bad. Artemis Fowl was a disaster.
Oh man,
Terrible.
again,
Golden
all of
Compass
my
was
childhood. Yeah,
horrible.
my entire childhood. Percy Jackson was pretty bad also.
didn't see
wasn't
that.
great.
Antariksh was waiting for you guys to mention this.
Yeah. Artemis Fowl, I'm so glad someone brought up because
No.
I was a huge nut, Artemis Fowl nut.
Yeah,
And
it was a really fun set of books, but this
I
movie
checked-
was terrible.
exactly, I checked the Rotten Tomatoes rating of the movie. Just guess what the Artemis Fowl movie is rated.
7.
3.
Man, Amit, you won't believe how close you are. It's 8% on Rotten Tomatoes.
I
don't
would
think-
like to meet the 8 people who like it. It was bad. It was just bad, right?
was
I mean,
terrible.
like, I'm just, I struggle, right? I mean, like, so Dune goes into sci-fi, right? The new Dune, which I haven't
Yeah.
seen yet, but the Dune becomes sci-fi. There's a bunch of good sci-fi adaptations, right? The Martian is great, right? But once you get into
The
fantasy,
Expanse is not bad.
sci-fi, right? Again, all
Yeah.
of this is sci-fi. The fantasy stuff, just because the thing with fantasy is there's such a tight balance to be maintained between how do you make it so that it's realistic but at the same time fantastical,
That's true.
right? And that balance is damn tricky, right? I mean, like even in the Harry Potter things, right? I mean, like 1 and 2 were not good. 3 is where they kind of found their voice,
Yeah.
and then it was up and down since then, right? I mean, like some were good, some were okay.
I'll tell you what people have gotten right in live adaptation so far with, VFX, with storytelling and all of that put together. We're able to do creatures well. We're able to do sort of fantasy settings reasonably well, especially if they're a little medievally. So you look at something like Game of Thrones. What's your magic element? It's actually the dragon breathing fire.
There's no
That's
magic
your
in the
main
Game of
magical
Thrones.
element.
A little bit of
No, the magical
red-
element is the fire. That's
red
about
one.
Yeah,
it.
there's what's her name? The redhead doing
the
some
red
stuff.
woman. Yeah. The
Yeah.
red
Yeah,
witch,
which is some shadow stuff,
Yeah,
right?
it's
So when you
mysticism.
limit your magic to that, it's not difficult to adapt. And Game of Thrones also had an insane budget, right? Like the likes of which, by the way, this show is not seeing. If you watch the first 3 episodes of The Wheel of Time, you can make out that everything is a set,
But
right?
Pavan,
But budgets, I should say, at least from the trailer, the budgets look pretty crazy for
the
the show.
budgets on Wheel of Time are really high. They're not
Yeah.
as high as last season Game of Thrones, but they're
Okay.
as high as like 4th season, 5th season Game of Thrones.
But
Yeah.
I can make out that a styrofoam block of concrete is being thrown at
So,
somebody.
the
Very obviously, it hits me in the face.
So, Pavan, I'll say this, right? The thing that you were talking about when it came to this, right? So, one of the differences between Wheel of Time, right, which is, and Game of Thrones, is the lack of magic, which is why
Yes.
the sets should look a little faker. In the sense that precision does not exist in the Game of Thrones world, in the same way that it exists in the Wheel of Time world. Magic is technology. In the Wheel of Time, magic is
Yes.
technology.
Yes, but not in the first 3 episodes, the village where it's set. So
Yeah.
without doing spoilers, that village has not been built with magic. So, and you should just see the costumes of the characters in the Wheel of Time adaptation. I don't want to come swinging negative, but man, it looks like Amazon is going to sell each one of those products for a
Yeah.
great markup on Amazon.com and in no time. It's amazing sweaters, amazing apparel. There's no hint of coarseness. So there are a few things that are wrong,
There
but
are.
in general, what I do want to say is that even if you take The Witcher, right, which involves some magic,
Yeah.
the amount of actual magic that is used by
The Witcher
Geralt,
himself,
the
yeah.
Witcher himself,
Yeah.
or by Yennefer and others is very limited. And The Witcher goes for very simple establishing shots and really is very clever with how it uses its budget to do good action, right? So yes, Wheel of Time, and especially in the first 3 episodes, you get to see the magic of the Wheel of Time, the use of the powers of Saidin and Saidar, as magic is referred to in the books and the series, to great effect, where there's a lot of flowing stuff. I've seen great visualization of magic in anime and in animated properties, but live action, nobody's done it. So what they're doing right now is not bad. There are lots of some things that take you out of it, but nobody has done this.
Yeah.
But then
Nobody's done
doesn't it turn you off from watching it further?
Hmm.
And especially because you love the books, then doesn't it affect your experience of
Or are
watching
you
the
watching it?
show?
Are you watching it to see how bad could they do? How
No, so I'm
badly could
enjoying
they-
it. I mean, like
Oh,
honestly,
really?
I'm unironically, I'm enjoying it. I
Wow.
thought so one of the challenges with the book as it was, right, is that the first 50, 60 pages of the first book are quite boring. Okay, they're boring is maybe a too strong a word, right? But they're very derivative of Lord of the Rings, and they're just like it's like, oh, I'm a farm boy. Oh, I have thatchers. Oh, I have a blacksmith. Oh, I have a thief friend.
Does this author also have the habit of going on to like just tangential
That's
arcs
his
and
entire thing.
Oh, really?
It's not. Does this author have the habit?
That's
Did
his
this
entire-
author introduce the world to what a tangent can and should
Oh,
be?
really? It's before
Especially in the
before Tolkien. This is
Huh?
then.
No, it's not before Tolkien. But
Okay.
Tolkien doesn't go tangential the way this guy does.
Oh, okay. Wow.
But is
the-
this because it's so personal to you that you're biased that you like the show, or
But I
do
really-
you
no, I-
actually just enjoy it?
No, I just enjoyed it. I thought it was fun, right? I thought the first episode was somewhat blah, but the second and third episode, I really enjoyed. I thought the third episode was excellent.
So what about someone who's not read the books? Would they? Be...
I think they should enjoy it. I mean, like, again, I think that they will feel the same thing where the first episode is kind of like, this is cool, this is okay, this seems interesting. The second one is where you kind of start to get into it, and the third one is like, oh wow, okay, this is cool. Because the world blows up in the sense like it really kind of you understand the depth that exists to a degree in the third episode, which you do not see in the first 2 episodes.
Okay.
So if you had to give like a elevator pitch
Mhm.
for somebody who's listening to this podcast, or even to us,
Yeah.
to convince us to watch the show, what would you give?
So actually I would use Robert Jordan's own pitch, right? That basically imagine you hear stories about people who are out to save the world, right? But nobody ever asks them, do you want to be the person who saved the world?
Like
And
in the sense we already have. There's always a chosen one.
there's a chosen one, but
Yeah.
nobody ever asks that chosen one, do you want to be
Not
the
the
chosen one?
Yeah.
And this story is about that, right? It's about how this guy actually, I guess if I don't want to do spoilers, how this guy or girl, but I don't think that those are real spoilers. But basically, how these folk, how this person comes about being called the chosen one, and how he struggles with the fact that this actually kind of sucks.
Yeah.
Being the chosen one's not cool. It's horrendous.
I think that's a trope. I just realized that the chosen one is never happy about being chosen one.
No.
Yeah.
Like everywhere, like everyone else is jealous. Like, how can you be the chosen one? But
Yeah.
the chosen one himself, I think, with great power comes great responsibility. One of those.
It's kind
Yeah.
of that, but it's also just I mean, like all the shit that happens because of that, right?
Yeah.
All of a sudden, and that's the stuff that makes this interesting. This is
So if I may lay out my
Yes.
addition to the elevator pitch, right?
Yes.
Think of this as a fantasy world where the story takes place in numerous multiple diverging and intersecting tangents over 14 books written by 2 authors. Robert Jordan didn't make it till the end of this. So another young hotshot fantasy writer, Brandon Sanderson, in collaboration with Robert Jordan's partner and wife, Harriet McDougall, I shouldn't get her name wrong. She was not just his partner, but also his editor.
Wow.
They got together and finished the series with 14 books. Now, basically, think of this as a sort of quasi-medieval fantasy land, not quite medieval, but the idea is that it's a fantasy land where magic is real, but the only form of accessible magic that can be used by certain women. And in this world, men who use magic are evil or go mad or something bad happens to them. That doesn't mean that this is a world where patriarchy is flipped over. No, most kingdoms are still kingdoms. There are kings. But think of, if you will, something like the Catholic Church, but there are these magic wielding women who sort of run various parts of the world, right? And in all of this, in this setting, there is prophecy. There's somebody like the chosen one who's supposed to save the world, and there is a great evil. So there is an identifiable evil, the way you have in Lord of the Rings and so many other things. And here it's even more sort of corporeal and personified in a certain way. Great evil is actually shaitan, right? From sort of the Islamic cosmology, if you will. And it's about how that happens. And the process is messy. Think of a continent, right? Because it is literally about 15 kingdoms, 16 kingdoms, something like that.
Something like that.
And Jordan draws heavily from different cultures in the world. There's one kingdom which is modeled after sort of the Greek city-states, one after, the Spanish, one English, French.
Exactly. French, British, Spanish.
Also from sort of Eastern kingdoms.
Japan, the first Shinar, that's based on Japan. That's based on the samurai tradition in Japan. So yeah, it's all these different things.
So you have again a good amount of diversity in terms of the peoples, in terms of the casting, in terms of the kind of roles. Not everyone's a magic user who's important. There are warriors, there are leaders, there are fighters, there are diplomats, there are strategists. So dramatis personae in this entire book series is immense. So first thing, go check out the book series if you haven't, if you want to experience fantasy fiction beyond the Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter.
Is the book series good, like even after the main author passed away?
It's amazing.
So Brandon Sanderson, I'll tell you, is one of the most prolific authors today.
And best.
He is punching hard, and he did a fantastic job because Jordan's notes were available. His partner and his editor had a good grasp of the thing, and as a young fantasy writer, he really came and tried to adapt the best of his styles and do it well. Having said that, over 14 books, there are certain books which are considered problem books, including the first one. You'll feel like this is like deja vu. This is Lord of the Rings with a different skin for the longest time, and you have to sort of get over that. So that's the book series. The TV series, we'll see what it is, but you're getting 8 episodes. 3 are already out. 1 will be out every Friday, I think on Amazon Prime. So you should really go check it out. It's 8 hours of fantasy content, the likes of which you wouldn't have seen before.
Cool. That seemed like a long elevator.
Elevator dropped off, and then before you could check in.
We were stuck in the elevator for a while, man.
Yeah.
So I kind of get like a little bit of the plot, but if you could describe a little bit more about
so
what the show is about.
What it is that so let's talk about what the show is, right? The books differ a little bit.
Okay.
But in the show, what you see is there's an Aes Sedai, which is basically a female magic user.
This is Rosamund Pike? This is played by Rosamund?
This is Rosamund Pike.
Oh, okay.
And her warder, right? The warder is basically bonded to the Aes Sedai, and he's her protector. So the Aes Sedai and the warder go into this village in Two Rivers, and in Two Rivers, they're looking for these kids, essentially 18 to 20-year-olds, who are going to be the world's savior. She doesn't know who they are. While they're there, essentially Dark One's minions attack. And they're there to kind of get these folks, these kids, and so she takes them and they leave. And then
that's another, by the way, trope, right, of fantasy, like these dark armies. There's a dark person, like the Dark One or the Night King, or in Lord of the Rings it was the Eye of Sauron. Yeah, Saruman. So yeah, that's a trope. And then the orcs and these.
The orcs are the original. Trollocs are what they're called over here, right?
Okay.
But I mean, like the orcs are original, right? In that sense, the orcs of Tolkien. There never used to be anything. So I read this recently, right? There was no such thing as orcs before Tolkien. Tolkien essentially invented orcs. Before that, they were just goblins.
Yeah. Do you know that this was, by the way, he invented hobbits, ents, orcs, all of them. And by the way, in the 70s, when Dungeons and Dragons, the role-playing game, came out, they shamelessly used orc, ent, hobbit, and everything.
That's how I found out about
by the Tolkien estate, and somehow they managed to retain orc. So orc has left the Tolkien universe now to become a generic word. And
Oh.
also orc is a standard Dungeons and Dragons skin if you want to play it. But Hobbit was changed to halfling. So halfling has entered the common lexicon. Ent was changed to treant. So treant is now, living tree that can move and do stuff. But orc somehow stayed. So Robert Jordan invented Prologues, which is some sort of orc-ish creatures, larger than human. They have different heads. They can have the head of an eagle, head of a boar, head of a bull, other things. And you see some of that on the show.
Yeah.
And they're tough. They're more powerful than most regular humans too. So they're tough to kill.
They're tough in the first book.
Okay, wow.
But
Yes.
that's a problem with generally fantasy, right? The more powerful your heroes get, the less the first villains seem to be
Important
or even
powerful.
like that.
So,
Yeah, powerful,
I
right?
get it, yeah.
So that's a general fantasy problem,
Yeah.
especially
Yeah.
when you have these kinds of powering up things.
But sometimes what happens is, what I really like is, as the main protagonist grows, the villain is also growing.
In this
Or
case,
one of the first villains.
The villain already is like all the way at the top over here.
Oh.
So it's basically a question of the protagonist, not one protagonist, but basically. So what really makes this show cool, right? It's 5 of them, right? And all 5 of them grow in like really, really significant ways. One is, I don't think these are broad spoilers, right? But one becomes more and more powerful as like, a warrior leader kind of this.
Okay.
Or, leader,
But, wait,
politician
the
kind
one
of
is
this.
supposed to be all women?
No, so the women is the group, right, of
Okay.
magic users.
Okay, huh.
Now, of those women, one goes into the village and comes out with these 5 teenagers. Of these 5 teenagers, they all turn into different things. So there are 2 women and 3 men here. The 2 women both become part of the magic society. The 3 men basically grow into like different kinds of powerful figures, but they're all fighting wars and like, because again, this is a fantasy story and this is a time at which the Dark One is rising. So there are lots of wars and people have to fight those wars. And so these 3 guys go out and like fight these wars in different ways. One is an army guy. One becomes like I don't know.
No, don't spoil too much here.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
three different ways.
3
is a
different
good thing
three
to say
different
for
ways to
now.
grow. Yeah, I'm trying not to spoil too much, but yeah, the politician, protector, warrior. You can look at all of these in like different ways.
Right.
And Antariksh, talking about tropes and more general a theme that's there in many of this, there is a coming of age that's there in many fantasy novels, right? There's a reason why you have this big world, a lot of adults who play important roles. Unlike young adult fantasy where all adults are evil, they don't go down that trope. But here are people who are in their teens who come of age, but they're also an important vehicle for the reader or for the viewer, right? Because you grow with them. They don't know the world. They're in the boonies in their little village, and they're off now with adventure and meeting magic and monsters and more, and people who are worse than monsters. And they're getting to see the reality of the world, and you get to see the reality of the world with them. And I see as a feature. It's very hard to imagine if Lord of the Rings had Gandalf as a protagonist. He already knows everything.
Yeah.
How do you learn with him? Like you learn in spite of him, or then he will drip feed you information by saying things aloud, right?
Yeah,
so having the hobbits or the 5 teenagers here and sort of learning about the world with them is a big part of what makes fantasy fantastical.
What I'm understanding is that both of you kind of agree that this is a very good adaptation for what it is, basically, for what the Wheel of Time could have been. Or would you have preferred a more high budget series of movies?
No, so I think a television show is the only way you can do it. I don't know if you can fit it all, right, in a TV show. There was something that happened in the first episode which did not happen in actuality, right? But the reason that it did not happen in the books, a major thing happened, right? The reason why it was done was because they need to accelerate the character arc of that particular character. Something was done to somebody associated with the character, and because of that, the character has to kind of grow quicker than he otherwise does.
Okay.
Right? And you're going
Let me
to
guess, someone dies.
Someone dies.
Yes! That's how you do it.
But basically somebody close to a character dies, which is not there. But the point of it is to kind of propel that character's arc. Otherwise, he has to grow. He has to face that degree of anguish over a certain period of time, rather than just giving it to him and then boom, you're that.
Okay.
Right? So there are changes like that from an adaptation perspective. But just think of the length of this, right?
Yeah.
14 books.
Yeah.
Okay, each of the book averages 1,000 pages.
Oh my
Oh,
word.
okay.
Okay, so we're talking about essentially 140,000 pages worth of books.
Hmm.
Oh, sorry, 14,000 pages
But
worth of books.
does that mean you're expecting 14 seasons out of this?
So they are.
That's
so
the question, no?
Yeah.
That is, but I think that we won't, because I think what you'll see, and Pavan, I don't think this is a spoiler. I think you'll see a season for 1, you'll see a season for 2 and 3.
Or they might skip
combined.
books then, you were saying.
No, I think that. So I think that there is a lot of. So to build these books, there's a lot of world building. Right. And when you're writing, you have to write all of this out, right?
Correct,
But when you're doing film, you just show it.
Yeah, correct.
Right. So I
Yeah.
think that they'll be able to kind of do this. Also, there is a so books 7, 8, 9, and 10. Those 4 books combined should probably have been like a book and a half. Because what happened is that the way when you write a story with this many characters wind up in different places, right? Pacing kind of changes. Now to kind of get to the end game, right, which is books 11, 12, 13, 14,
Yeah.
you need all of those characters to be at a certain point.
Oh, wow. Okay,
So
I get it.
what
Yeah.
wound up happening is that, there was a little bit of, let's say, flab in those 4 books, right? They
Yeah.
could have been a lot shorter. So I think that they will fix that now, because now the thing is also the writer is discovering the stuff as he's writing it also. So, he can't be that. This is why George R.R. Martin's books are like 10 years away. Because same problem, right? They have so many characters in so many different places doing so many different things. How do you set them up for the next dominoes to fall? And so that kind of leads to this kind of thing. And the same problem was there with Robert Jordan, right?
Okay.
I mean, before he died, it was kind of a joke, right? That dude, this guy's going to die before he finishes the series.
Oh, and then he did.
And he
Man.
actually did, yeah.
No, and by the
Sad.
way, both Martin and I mean that's the fear that many have with Martin as well.
Yeah,
But
of
now
course.
it's become so long that people have quasi given up.
Yeah.
And I'm speaking about myself too. But Robert Jordan was suffering from amyloidosis, and this was a chronic condition. And he was giving updates on his blog, and we were hopeful, and
Wow.
things go wrong, right? And
You mean he was giving updates on his health or on the book?
On his health.
both.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Both. And George R.R. Martin was also doing that at one point. Eventually, he gave up and now talks about football on his blog, which ticks off anyone who started reading the books. But hey, I started it in 2007. I've been waiting for 14 years. I'm done. It'll happen when it happens.
I'll be honest. At this point, I'm just waiting. I'll wait for the entire thing. Otherwise, I'm not getting back into it, because I've forgotten everything I read about that. I read that. So I haven't even read the 5th book, right? I read it. I read all 4 when the first 4 came out. I loved them, and I love them so much that I'm like,
Talking
what?
about
I'm
Game
not-
of Thrones. just
Game
to
of
be clear.
Thrones. Yeah. So I love them so much. I'm like, I'm not watching this TV show. I want to only read the books because these are so good. But now at this point, I'm just like, let them all come out, and then I'm not getting back into this until it's all done, because it's too annoying, right? And the thing is also, I don't want to watch the TV show either, because I don't want to watch 8 seasons of this stuff, right? I want to experience the book, and that's the only thing I want to do right now. So yeah.
So to just, I think, wrap up on
Yeah.
Wheel of Time, the TV show, I would say I'm cautiously optimistic, enjoying what's coming out so far. What I am curious about is how, like, Game of Thrones, I think, had a rough plan, 80% to 100% of a book in one season, roughly, and they sort of managed to maintain that. And when the books ran out, the show also sort of went to hell. So that was a problem. But here, I'm curious as to the pacing. So Amit, I think from what I think the showrunner has said, the first season is going to contain a bunch of things from season 1, from book 1, a few things from book 2 as well,
Okay.
but not everything from book 1, which may get introduced later. So how they slice and dice and how they pace, I think, is really important, and how they change the story. Then they might lose the super fans,
Yeah.
but they might attract new fans.
Right, I think they have to tell
So-
the story for the medium, right? Because there's definitely some things that you can tell that are missing from book 1, right? The introduction of a character named Min, for example. We've already gone past the point where that should have happened, and it's not happened. So,
Yeah.
and I mean, so there are going to be things like that, and she has been cast, so she'll come in later in this, right? There is I don't think this is a spoiler for anybody, because you need to read the book for this to be a spoiler, but the prologue of The Eye of the World, right, which is the first book of the Wheel of Time series, is considered by many to be the best prologue ever written for a fantasy book ever, right? And
Okay.
we just completely removed it from the series altogether
Okay.
at this
Okay.
point. Or they've not removed it from the series, but it's not a prologue anymore. It might come somewhere later,
Oh, okay.
but it's not a
Yeah.
prologue anymore, right? But it's considered like to be like, and it is, right? I mean, like, I saw the show and I'm like, man, I want to read that prologue again because it was missing, and I read it again. It is amazing.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. So that brings us to the end of this discussion on Wheel of Time. Just, okay, one quick thing,
Yes.
and then we'll end this. Is there time travel in Wheel of Time? Or anything to do with time?
There is stuff to do with time, but it's not time
travel. Okay, fair enough. All right.
So I'll tell you this: the Wheel of Time actually it draws from Hindu and Buddhist ideologies of the Wheel of Time, the Dharma Chakra. So the weft and the weave. So it's also like a weaving wheel, you know. So there's a lot of metaphor and imagery about the weft and the weave of time, and about who pulls the strings and all of that. So
this is
check
perfect.
that out on the show and the books.
That's what you said, Pavan, is a perfect segue for what Zalak has in store for you. Zalak.
So talking about weaves and wheel and everything, we have a dialogue from the show,
Okay.
which we think
From the
is
trailer, sorry, we
yeah,
should-
from the
we should
trailer,
clarify.
yeah.
Okay.
That's all Zalak and I saw.
Yeah, which we think is an amazing tongue twister.
Okay.
So I'm gonna say it first. You guys have to try on next.
Sure.
All right. The wheel weaves as the wheel wills.
Yeah, dude, I've read this line.
But
This
can you-
line starts in this one. This line is there in every single book multiple times. The wheel weaves as the weaves will.
But as a tongue twister.
Again,
is-
you didn't.
That's-
You didn't
I didn't
say-
get it right.
No.
Okay. The wheel weaves as the weaves. Oh,
Yeah.
I got it wrong.
And say it
Yes.
faster if you
Okay.
can, please.
The wheel weaves as the wheel.
Holy
the wheel
Pavan, you can-
weaves as the wheel wills.
Yeah,
Yeah.
as the wheel will.
Will.
The wheel
singular.
weaves as the wheel will. The wheel weaves as the wheel will.
The wheel
There you
weaves as the wheel will.
Yes.
The wheel weaves as the wheel will.
I have given up
Uh,
when I was
Wheel wills
practicing
and
for
wheel
this.
will.
W's all the way.
All right, that brings us to the end of this half. We'll be right back after this very short break.
Have you ever wondered where the business world is headed? How the ways in which we create, market, and sell to consumers will evolve? Or if we'll ever go back to wearing pants while working? For answers to all of this and more, tune into Advertising is Dead with me, Varun Dugirala. Every Tuesday, as I talk to entrepreneurs, leaders, and change makers from across business, media, marketing, and beyond. You can catch all episodes of Advertising is Dead on the IVM Podcast website, app, or wherever you get your podcasts from.
And we are back. We just talked about The Wheel of Time, new Amazon Prime TV show. If you guys aren't convinced that you should be watching The Wheel of Time, I don't know what else will convince you, because I think Amit and Pavan were more than convincing, because I'm bloody sold on this already.
Yeah, long
Uh,
elevator.
Yeah, super long elevator. All right, so before we get into the second half, Zalak here has a quick fun game for us.
Yeah.
Okay.
So basically, I'm gonna tell you a badly described plot of a
Okay.
movie or a series. You have to guess, but they're all fantasy. All right. You just have to
Okay.
guess which movie we are talking about.
All right. Let's try.
Yeah. Cool,
All
Pavan.
right.
Cool. So
All
the
right.
first one goes like this: older sister ruins younger sister's chance to appear on television.
This is fantasy, huh?
Could you repeat that again?
Older sister ruins younger sister's chance to appear on television.
It's like Sabrina.
No.
Oh, great. I can't guess
No
because I know the
idea.
answer.
No idea.
I have no idea.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Should I say the
Yeah,
answer
yeah.
then? Hunger Games.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
These are, again, badly described movie plots. That's a hit.
Okay.
Okay, so I have one more. Group spends 9 hours returning jewelry. This is actually fairly simple.
Really?
Yeah.
9
This is-
hours.
This is Divergent or something like that.
No.
Come on, you guys can guess this.
Returning jewelry.
Yeah. A group spends 9 hours returning jewelry.
Shadow and Bone.
No?
No.
That seems obscure.
There are so, you know how great this question is. You guys will laugh out loud once you hear the answer.
9 hours returning jewelry. Where do you return jewelry?
Well, that's Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows.
No,
No.
no, no.
No.
9
Huh.
hours.
9 hours. Okay. 9 hours. So does that mean it's like a show with 9 episodes? No.
No hints.
You're along the correct track in that.
Well, Lord of the Rings.
Yes, that is
Yes.
right. A group spends 9
Ah,
hours. That is
okay.
about 3
Yes.
hours of movie. Returning jewelry. I love that. What a great, badly described movie. All right, so
I have
yes.
a last
Oh, yeah,
one.
one more.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Boy spends 7 years being a third wheel.
Harry Potter.
Ah,
that's
yeah,
right.
this is easy.
Yeah, I think Lord of the Rings. Once you got
Yeah.
it, like, oh, they're talking about these fantasy
Yeah.
movies.
Yeah.
That was easy. All right. So yes, we have already talked about the classic obvious ones. The book, the live action adaptation of fantasy books that we like. That is, we already talked about Harry Potter. We already talked about Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones. I had meant to talk about the Aragon books, which I was a total nerd about. I know Amit, I think you and I
I've
have
read
talked
them.
about, but you weren't that big a fan of the later 3 books. The first one you kind of liked. If
So I
I'm not
like
wrong.
the first one,
Yeah.
and I don't think I read the fourth one.
You didn't read Brisinga?
I don't think I read
Oh no,
the-
what was the last one called? No. It was Aragon, Eldest, Brizinger, and then what is the last one called?
I don't remember. See, that's how memorable.
Yeah, I
Inheritance. It
also
was called
gave up on the
Inheritance.
fourth
Inheritance.
one.
Inheritance.
No,
yeah.
that's the name of
Yeah.
the whole thing.
No,
It's
no,
called
the last one was
Inheritance
called
Cycle.
Inheritance. Inheritance Cycle. The last book was
okay.
called also Inheritance.
Alright.
I know.
Okay, yeah, no, I'm pretty sure I didn't read that.
Yeah,
I
I
like the
wanna
first book because it was written by Christopher Paolini when he was still
18
in
or
what,
something, no?
No, he was a
18 or
kid.
younger.
He was a 14, 15-year-old,
Damn.
something like that. He was
Yeah.
a kid.
Damn. Yeah, that is.
So
even
like
that's-
cool. There's
Yeah.
some stuff lifted from the Jedi world. There's some
Hmm.
stuff from elsewhere. But this is amazing for a 14-year-old.
Yeah.
I want to see
Yeah.
him grow. I want to see the books grow as he
Yeah.
grows. Unfortunately I didn't see any of the growth. It's sort of
Yeah.
No, oh man,
took it
I
off.
really liked, especially the second book also, which was called Eldest,
Hmm.
was the one where he goes into the Elven land and he.
So the second one wasn't that bad. That was the one where his brother becomes a more prominent character
yeah,
too,
correct,
right?
correct. Yeah, that's
So,
exactly
so
the one,
that
yeah.
wasn't terrible. It wasn't great, but it wasn't terrible. But then the
Okay.
third book was awful.
The third
man.
book, it had very little to do with the main villain. The Galbatorix
Yeah.
was the main villain, right?
I can't remember.
I remember.
It's been a while.
yeah.
But the
Yeah.
third book was
But-
awful. I remember
yeah.
that. And I didn't read the fourth one.
But I still think that movie properly deserves that
It
series
does.
deserves
See,
a good adaptation.
It's a good. It's a
Great
very
concept.
It's a
Yeah.
very cinematic movie.
Exactly, that's very true.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, like dragons are awesome, right? And I
Dragons
mean,
are
like, so it's a very cinematic movie, but
Yeah.
it didn't really work.
But see, this is also what happened, right? Lord of the Rings was such a big critical and commercial success. Then they're like, okay, you know what? Before this, fantasy unadaptable. Now let's make movies.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And lots of people tried one movie thinking that they'll milk a trilogy out of it. Didn't work.
Yeah.
Right. Aragon is a great example of that. And Game of Thrones has done the same thing now, right? I mean, oh wow, you can do prestige television, you can adapt fantasy or something into this long, high budget series, but you can't just replicate that. I think Shannara is by Terry
Shannara-
Brooke, right?
Yeah, but
It
that was not.
tried,
It was an MTV show. It was low budget. It wasn't very good, and it was also not from the best source material, to be honest. I mean, Shannara is kind of like Nancy Drew fantasy, right? It's fun. It's nice. It's like all the pieces are in the right place, but it's not particularly amazing.
yeah.
Again, similarly, like Aragon didn't get a good adaptation. We already talked about Artemis Fowl and Percy Jackson also not getting good adaptations. Another movie that I don't know if either of you or Zalak have actually seen this. Have you seen the movie called I Am Number 4 or read the book about the Lorien legacies?
No.
It is about great books. I've read. So I'm Number 4 is the first book. Then the Legacy of 6. Then there's 9. So there are like about 5 books or 6 books up till now. I've read them all. It's about, so there are these 2 warring interstellar warrior clans in a way. They're called the Lorics and Magadorians. Okay, and the Magadorians have come to Earth and they've like basically infiltrated our planet. In like they have their agents at high levels of government and trying to basically like take over our planet from within. Right, that's kind of what they want to do. Because they're conquerors, they go around planet to planet and conquering in various ways. The Loric are like a warrior clan that used to be their enemies. Were mostly made extinct by the Magadorians. The surviving members have since come to Earth, and there are like 9 of them. That is, I Am Number 4 is the 4th of those. There are 9 remaining. Okay, each of them have a guardian called the Sepan. It's just a term. Just go with it. They have something called a Sepan who basically guides them and tells them, because when they are sent to Earth, they're like toddlers. They don't know much. They don't know what they come from. So this person's supposed to be the guide, tell them how to use their powers when they actually start showing their powers. The powers in this world are called legacies because these.
So what's this called again?
This is the Lorien Legacies Chronicles.
This sounds very much like all the Chinese fantasy art.
It does?
Chinese martial arts.
Oh
fantasy
wow,
I've been reading.
cool. Maybe I'm reading a translation.
It
of
very
a
well
Chinese-
could be. It very well could be.
Really?
I also
No,
got
no.
a hint of Transformers, by the way.
Yeah?
But,
Yeah.
I was
never
actually
mind.
thinking, because of all these multiple people with powers and all of them are important, I was thinking that it was actually like a Wheel of Time a little bit, because there are 5 main people, and as you said, right? That's
Yeah.
what my understanding was.
No, that's
Yeah,
true.
but Wheel of Time is not quite Captain Planet,
Yeah.
when all our powers combine, then Captain Planet arrives. I mean, it's not exactly that what
Okay.
you're saying, I think.
Okay, I get it. No,
But
yeah, this is a very
Eternals,
good.
which is a great movie that came out just now, does some version of this, right? And they're also trying to set up MCU Part 2. So you're right. But you're saying there was a movie adaptation of this?
Yeah, there was a movie adaptation which didn't do that well. The movie is not bad, I would say.
What's
It
it
got
called again?
I Am Number 4.
Okay.
That's the first book, based on the first book. The book is told in the first person from Number 4's perspective, who takes the human name of John Smith. But he's basically like, they're all humanoid creatures for the most part. And yeah, just check out this book series. It's very interesting. And it's young fiction. Again, it's not like high fundamental, like I don't know, space travel or crazy politics or something like that. Nothing like that. It's quite simple and straightforward. But yeah, pretty
Should
pretty
check
interesting.
it out.
The other thing, I think Netflix has adapted Shadow and Bone.
Yes.
I keep mucking up the name of the author. I think Le Bardo, if I'm not mispronouncing the name. Shadow and Bone was not bad. It leans a little young adulty in terms of it's not the most complex of universes. Again, limited shadow and light magic, right? That's the easiest thing to visualize. They did a decent job of that. Again, it's not a show that really sticks to you, but I think a season 2 will be coming out. So again, it falls in the decent adaptation sort of category. And to me, like, I think TV series wise, beyond Game of Thrones, The Witcher, I think is the best thing
It's
out
the
there.
best one out there, yeah.
It's incredible, and I love what choices they went for. Right? They said, "Look, what The Witcher 3, the game is incredibly popular.
Yeah.
We're not going to recreate it." And
Yeah.
Witcher 3 is known for consequences and action. Right? So you, as a player, play in many different parts. You can be evil, amoral, good, noble, whatever, and the choices you make really determine the end of your game. And it's an incredibly popular series. Even now, people are downloading it, buying it, and playing it. So the series folks said, you know what, that's fine. We'll set our series much earlier and we'll tell a different story. And they had books also to refer to. But I thought, did a fantastic job, and they met the brief with their budget. They didn't try to.
Absolutely.
A lot of the times, shows overreach, right? These guys did a great job with the limited budget that they had.
I would agree. Yeah.
Interesting.
I'm highly looking forward to the second season. It's just about, I think, just around the corner.
It just came out, yeah.
It just came out already?
I think it
No.
did, or did they just? Okay,
I think
maybe I
December.
just started seeing the
Oh,
promos.
yeah. Oh,
for
yeah,
it.
exactly. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, they put out an animated movie about
That was
you know,
about a year ago,
prequel.
right? Yeah, that was a while
Yeah,
ago.
that was a while ago. The season starts in December.
So I did a search of fantasy book adaptations, and honestly, I found one which would probably be my favorite, though I haven't seen it in about 10, 15 years. But I don't know if it qualifies as really fantasy. That would be The Princess Bride. Is that really fantasy?
I'm not sure.
I don't think there's magic in The Princess Bride, if I'm not mistaken.
No, there isn't.
There isn't, no?
The Princess Bride is the Montoya one, no? The
Yes.
You Killed
Yeah.
My Father.
Yes.
My name is, what is the
My
name?
name is Carlo. My name is Inega Moya.
Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die.
Yes.
Yeah, famous.
But it's really, really funny movie. But I don't know if it is. I don't think it's there in multiple lists about
Yeah?
best fantasy stories.
Man, like that.
fantasy
Yeah, I didn't
adaptations.
think of it, but Robin Hood Men in Tights is a very. I think of it as in the same
that
vein.
is fantasy-ish.
Yeah, I love that movie.
And that
It's-
actually probably has more magic than The Princess Bride does, right?
That's probably true. Yeah.
There is a witch in Robin Hood, isn't there?
Yeah.
Two other properties I think we should not forget. One is C.S. Lewis, Chronicles of Narnia.
Yes, of course.
Some of the movies were not great. Some
Most
of the
Yeah.
movies were good.
Not
great.
great.
But
I'm
you
not a
know,
big fan of the books either.
itself,
Are you
I got into them late. But if
Yeah,
you read them at the right time, I mean, they were life changing.
They're
I mean,
interesting, yeah.
Okay, I read them in school and I never really got into them. I read a couple of the first
So
two.
I've read a few as well, and I think they're interesting, right? In the sense that, so I read them as an adult. So I read them with the knowledge that these are Christian allegory. And given that, I kind of I read them with that lens in mind, and I quite enjoyed them. I thought they were pretty interesting, right? I mean, I can see that if I was a kid and I was trying to be brainwashed, I probably might. I don't know if I would. If you're being brainwashed, you don't know you're being brainwashed, right?
Yeah, sure.
But I don't know if that were. But again, as an adult, knowing this, I thought they were decent.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
What about
The
you,
other,
Zalak?
I would say, which Amit hates, we've discussed this on a episode of IVM Likes when I was here. It's The Magicians by Lev
Oh,
Grossman.
I hate that book.
But the
Okay.
TV series, I tell you again, not the highest of budgets. They go beyond the books. So they got Lev Grossman, the author himself, onto the show as a consultant, and he himself says that, look, this show did what I could never do with my books. And when I think they neatly wrapped up, I think with 4 seasons, if
I
not
think so.
5, and it's fantastic. It's the most, if you're into fantasy and other things, this references all of them, because this is a world like ours where Harry Potter, the books have been written, where Lord of the Rings has been written.
Yeah.
They're like, don't be a muggle is a thing that people can just say because
So
it's just pop culture.
I love this when they do this, right? When they involve the creator in the process of when they're adapting their book or their source material to something else and they get the creator involved, I'm like, okay, at least.
Let me flip you right back to Brandon Sanderson and The Wheel of Time. Brandon Sanderson's been heavily involved in the creation of the Wheel of Time
great.
show.
That immediately
At least on the
confidence.
scripting
I get a lot of
part of
confidence.
it, to the point where if you go to the Wheel of Time subreddit or the fantasy subreddit, he is actively answering questions from people asking him stuff about
Wow.
these
Oh,
about the
wow.
episodes and choices made. and whether or not, and like straight up, like honestly, right? Like, so like the thing that I spoke about, the person who died, many people have hated that, right? I mean, like that there was a person close to this person who died. Many people hated the fact that that was there. And he actually spoke about it. He said, like, yeah, I suggested we not do it. I did not think it was a great idea. But then he said this before watching. And then after he watched it, he said, okay, yeah, you know what? I didn't really like the idea on paper, but when I saw the execution of it, I understood what they were doing. And I'm glad that they did it in the way that they did it. Even though I would still prefer they didn't do it, but that they did it as well as they could. And I really kind of thought that was pretty cool, right? That, I mean, like the person who finished the books, not the guy who started the books, right? Obviously he died. But the guy who finished the books, who has been as deep into the lore of this particular story as anybody could ever be, is like on Reddit answering questions about this.
Okay, wow. So
That's amazing.
there is an upcoming Netflix live action show adapted from the biggest manga in the world, which is my favorite manga, is One Piece.
Cowboy Bebop. Cowboy Bebop is coming.
Oh, yeah, I'm watching it. Cowboy. So
It's already out.
It's already out. Oh, okay. All right.
That's already I must say, it's getting some hate, but I really find it enjoyable because I'm thinking of it as not an adaptation, but like just something added to the, like you can just watch it as an addition to the original. Have you seen Cowboy Bebop?
I've seen about half of it.
Oh, it's fantastic.
I
Whatever you
really
saw, I'm sure you
enjoyed
liked.
it. But
Yeah.
see, it's a binge watch series in its truest sense in my mind. Right?
26
It's like
episodes,
if you break the binge, then at that point in time you have to kind of make yourself get back into it.
That's true.
Yeah.
I would agree.
Yeah. So
Fair enough.
I've seen half of it, but the remaining half is to be seen.
Yeah. But again, like if I was recommending the anime or like either one of the anime or the Netflix show, I would definitely recommend the anime because that's considered one of the greatest anime ever made. Just 26 episodes and that's it. You don't have
In
to
the
worry
Western world, Cowboy Bebop is unique in being extremely popular in the West and not that culturally relevant
Are you
back in
sure?
Japan. Yeah.
Okay. Wow, that's
Reasonably.
surprising to me. I did not know that.
And one of the reasons is, I mean, people have written articles on how, Reddit communities kept this alive. The other part is some of these dubbing companies have been showing Cowboy Bebop year on year for like 14 years or something on
That's true.
American television.
Yeah.
So it's huge in the
And
US.
I must say it has one of the best soundtracks of almost
It does.
any
yes.
anime.
And it's
Tank.
Yeah, that's Tank. That's
it's
the
really
opening.
visually striking. I mean, like it
Absolutely.
really is. I've seen
Yeah.
so again, I'm not like the biggest anime guy, but I've seen quite a bit, right? And I've seen a bunch of other animation, even if it's not like the anime. And I've got to say, this is like one of the most visually
Yeah,
stunning.
and it
it's
still
20
holds
years
up.
old,
Yeah,
right?
it
It's
still
20
holds up.
years old.
It's
And
still
it's
great.
it's just
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
incredible,
I
right? I
would-
mean,
I
like
would
just
totally
the visuals on it are really, really
Absolutely.
amazing.
So I want to basically just talk about not Cowboy Bebop, as you said. I want to talk about the highest selling manga that has ever existed,
Oh,
which
your
is now
favorite.
which is now the second most highest selling manga comic book in the world, just behind Superman. It has beat Batman since just I think in the 2020 only it beat Batman.
Okay.
It is about to beat Superman within the next 3-4 years. It is just inevitable. I'm talking about One Piece, which is I think like since how long you've been reading Wheel of Time, I've been reading One Piece, I would say.
I doubt that's
Oh,
true.
2006. No, that's very long.
Yeah,
I
doubt
mean, it
that's
was like at
true.
least like 12, 13 years only. But I would say like I'm a huge nut about One Piece, and sadly,
So how do you start One Piece? Where do I
so,
start?
so a friend of mine just started. A friend of mine, Hoshang, he just started Shah Hoshang, and what he did is so basically One Piece. More than just 1,000 episodes just about to come out. The 1,000th episode has just been teased this past week, and so it's impossible to get into just if you just want to start from episode 1. It's a tough ask for sure. So what One Piece the makers have done is they have made movies. There are multiple, like more than 20 movies now at this
Okay.
point. Okay, they made movies. And there are movies which go arc by arc, just
Okay.
concised into one like movie. You know?
Right.
So like there's one movie which just talks about how all the crewmates got onto the crew. So you
Okay.
can just watch that part. Then there's one movie which talks about just the Skype arc. So you can just watch that movie and understand at least the main points or the main the main aspects of the Skype arc and beyond. So there are like the first 300 chapters or so you can get done with like just 8 movies.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Okay.
and then but then the rest you will still have to watch. There's no shortcut after
No,
that.
I'm not looking for a shortcut. Right? I'm just like, if this is something I want to kind of start thinking of,
So
how
I
do
would
I
say.
even approach this?
So I don't watch the anime.
Okay.
I only read the manga. I've been reading the manga since I've been reading it.
Hmm.
Because I have tried watching the anime. The problem is because the anime was started 24 years back now. The first few
Not available.
Yeah, no, they are available. The animation is not great.
Oh, okay.
Alright.
Because they didn't have the budget that they have
Right,
now. It's the
right,
biggest
right,
show in the
right.
world. So the animation is not great. Just there's like you can tell it's low budget or not as good. It's aimed towards children, at least in the beginning it was.
Mhm.
And then it started becoming slightly more and more mature as the audience of it also grew. But again, fun fact, One Piece now has the audience of like 12-year-olds are reading it and 40 to 55 years old people are reading it.
I would
That's
think so.
diverse.
Yeah, it's crazy. So, but the problem
Yeah,
with
you guys are acting as if like 40 to 55 is like some unheard of.
No.
like way can't believe that these people are actually consuming content. Why aren't they sitting at home and just like looking and waiting to die?
No, I'm just talking about the demographic, like
Okay,
the
all right.
range of the demographic. But I don't know. I would be pretty interested in seeing like a 90-year-old watching One Piece as excitedly as I am. Why not? I will say though that the fan base of One Piece, which is again I think a super extensive fan base, is very skeptical of the live action show because how do you adapt one of the greatest anime ever, like one of the most popular things? Like, you will make mistakes, you will do things wrong or not the way fans want to do it.
So-
But Ichiro Oda, the creator, is involved as the creator is in Wheel of Time, etc. So that is the only saving grace. That this guy's creative mind is just so brilliant, and he has this great patience with everything he does. You can tell, and so that is the only hopeful part. But again, the casting has just come out, and people again are shitting on the casting. But
I think that's always going to be a challenge with
Yeah.
any of this kind of stuff, right?
That is true.
The true fans, right? When you're talking about a series like One Piece, which is 1,000 episodes of anime plus God knows how many comic books, right?
Yeah.
And you're talking about a series like The Wheel of Time, which is 14 books of like 1,000 words each, 1,000 pages each, right?
Yeah.
Game of Thrones, any of these, like Aragon for that matter, Avatar, The Last Airbender.
Yeah.
When you're talking about any of these kinds of things with like such
Have
huge,
you seen Avatar: The Last Airbender?
not the movie.
No, not the movie. Of course
Yeah.
not. But you've seen the show.
Yeah, of course I have.
Oh, great.
I've seen Avatar and Korra both.
I've seen both. Oh,
Yeah.
great, man.
Oh,
Cool.
yeah, but
Love
when
them
you're
both.
talking about these kinds of things where people are so passionate about them, you can't get you cannot get it right. You have to
Yeah.
just do it. You have to be true to what you think the story is because you're adapting it. You're not retelling it. If you're retelling the story, then you can be completely true to everything that people are asking for. But when you're adapting a story, taking it to a different medium, like this thing that we were just talking about, right? Like this person who died during the course of the Wheel of Time beginning, right?
Yeah.
The reason for it is because it's an adaptation. If they were doing a retelling, of course they cannot do this.
Yeah, correct.
But
absolutely.
adaptations require you to kind of, because if you were to think about it just from like an audiobook perspective, right? And so that's a true retelling of the story in some ways, right? So the audiobooks, again, 14 books, each of the audiobooks are 25 hours-ish,
Yeah. Okay.
right?
okay,
So
okay,
I mean,
okay.
like, what does that get you to from like just a storytelling perspective, right? 14
Yeah.
multiplied by 25. I can't do that math in my head right now. 280 plus 70. So 350 hours.
Okay, wow, that was fast.
Yeah.
That was way faster than I would have done it.
I don't know it's right, but it's what I
Okay.
got. It's something
we
you
got to assume it's right.
Yeah.
Someone will correct us. Zalak, what about you? Any shows you're excited
There's
about? Or
actually a book
what's your favorite?
that I read. It came out recently, but the thing is, it doesn't have a movie yet. It was optioned for a movie, but it didn't happen. So we're just waiting for the movie to come. It's called Children of Time.
Okay.
You guys know about it?
I feel like I've heard it, but I don't remember it.
So it's basically Earth is dying, and everybody has a plan to get out of Earth, and they do, but obviously they face a lot of problems. It's basically that.
Okay,
Okay.
great
Elevator
premise.
pitch.
Yeah, elevator pitch. Great.
Yeah.
that was like one floor. I was like, okay, cool. That brings us
Yeah.
to the end of the second half of the episode where we talked about live action adaptations of other book series other than The Wheel of Time. We'll be right back with our recommendation round right after this very short break.
Hey, everybody, it's been a great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On The Habit Coach, Ashton is joined by Namita Piparaya, yoga and Ayurved lifestyle specialist and founder of Yoganama. They talk about her yoga journey, the different kinds of yoga, and how to choose the one that's right for you. On Misconduct, Raghavi and Nisha introduce us to a French woman in the 1700s who stole Queen Marie Antoinette's diamond necklace by forging her signature. On Audio Gyan, Kedar talks to founder Tanul Vikamshi about his community art and design center, Alag Angle. On The Longest Constitution, Priya shares her insights on the important Nalso judgment of 2014. This judgment recognized the third gender and affirmed the right to self-affirm one's gender. And on Nankari, Sadaf and Archit speak to hotelier Diwan Gautam Anand about his journey through Delhi's past and present. Do follow us on social media. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And remember, if you're enjoying this show or any of our other shows for that matter, please do tell a friend. Also, do check out our various YouTube channels. You can catch them on IVM Podcast /YouTube. And finally, we'd like to thank our sponsors on the network this week: Cred, Bank of Baroda, Quota, CoinSwitch, Kuber, Flay Coffee, Intel, and Oxfam India. Thank you so much for making this possible.
And we are back with our recommendations. Zalak, would you like to start us off this episode?
Yeah. Since we were talking about Rosamund Pike and the Wheel of Time and everything, so I remembered this one movie I think I saw last year on Netflix. It's called I Care a Lot.
Okay.
It's a very creepy movie, but I like that genre. So I
I
really
think Rosamund
enjoyed
Pike
it.
has
Yeah.
a knack for, like, I think
Yeah.
Gone Girl was
Yeah.
great, but again, there was some creepy aspect to
Yeah,
it.
Yeah.
the character
Yeah.
was pretty similar to Gone Girls,
Oh, okay.
and I love Gone Girls, so I
I
really
love Gone
enjoyed
Girl,
this
yeah.
movie.
Cool.
Yeah,
Oh, okay. It's on Netflix, you said?
yeah, Netflix.
It's
Okay.
a Netflix show, or sorry,
It's
it's
a
a
movie.
Netflix movie,
Yeah.
or is it like a
Netflix
movie that's
movie.
on Netflix?
Netflix movie.
It's a Netflix movie.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, cool.
Do
So
you think there's a
definitely-
difference between regular movies and Netflix movies?
Yeah.
I think there is.
There's a
Yeah,
treatment,
yeah.
right? There's a certain treatment.
There's a
like-
certain thing about
yeah.
Netflix movies.
Yeah.
Also, listen, I mean, like, regular movies are not algorithmically driven the way Netflix movies are.
Of course.
So there is a
yes.
thing about Netflix movies, right? Which is why I think some of them really don't work as well as they could, right? I mean, like, they're like, for example, there was a Netflix fantasy movie with Will Smith in it.
Yeah,
which came out a
yep,
couple of years
yep.
ago. It was
Yeah, I know. I
this
forgot the
close
name.
to being awesome.
Really?
Yeah, it was this close to being awesome. It was okay, but it was not that far from being like really, really good.
So what do you think was missing? Though?
I think it was just, that people like this, people don't like. See, the thing about art, at least in my mind, right, is people need to take chances to make it. If
Hmm.
you're going to do the safe thing, then doesn't work. You can't make art by committee, right? What is that saying? A horse by committee is a camel.
Wow,
Right.
what a great, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, like, it doesn't work, right? I mean, like, somebody needs to have a singular vision in terms of how they're doing it, which is why the Netflix comedy stuff works amazingly well, right? The specials on Netflix are
That's
great
true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
because it's the comedian, and the comedian is completely empowered to do whatever the hell they want.
Yeah. Otherwise, it really won't work.
Yeah,
if
and
they
so I
start
don't think
censoring.
that you see that in the movies. I think the movies there is a tendency for it to be a little more polished. I think when it comes to reality shows, it doesn't matter when that's the case, but I think that's absolutely the case in reality shows.
They
where
go
do it.
safer in their
They go
shows
very
and
safe.
movies. Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough.
But
What about yours?
recommendation.
Yeah.
So another fantasy book series that I've been reading for the longest time now is one called the Harry Dresden series. It's written by a
I
book
know.
called Jim Butcher.
I've tried reading this. Like, I'm
Dude,
on the first book only. Sorry,
it is
but
incredible.
it's really good, right?
It's an amazing
It's like a
series.
detective magic
He's
thing.
a magic
Yeah,
detective.
that's so cool, dude.
Sits
It's a
in
premise.
Chicago.
Yeah.
And can I just say this, Antariksh? Persevere through the first and second book,
Okay. Okay.
because when you get to the third book, the whole thing goes like bananas.
I'm in.
Okay.
I'm in.
And when you get to the 12th book, at that point, it's got one of the best lines I think has ever been written in a fantasy book ever.
Okay.
I'm not going to tell you what it is because it's too much spoiler.
Oh.
It's too
okay.
spoilery for it, right?
Wow, one line.
But it is probably the single
epic.
best line that I can ever, like, the most affecting line that I've ever heard in my life.
Man, Jim Butcher, dude. That's
Jim
some
Butcher.
high
It,
praise
it,
for
it
Jim
is.
Butcher.
It really is. It really
Yeah.
is. Right. I mean, like, the book is called Changes. Like, at the end of it, the line, and anybody who's read it knows what line I'm talking about, right? It is just absolutely amazing. But I think 16th and 17th books came out together for it. So there was the 16th book is called Peace Talks. The 17th book is called Battleground. And I essentially read both of them over the weekend, and it was awesome.
Wait, how quick do you read?
When I'm motivated, I can read very fast.
Wow, like, okay, I'm imagining the book's at least like 300, 400
300
pages.
pages, yeah. You can read 300 pages in a day, dude. I mean, come on, that's not that much.
I mean, if you're not doing anything else,
Yeah.
sure.
Dude, it's 60 pages an hour. What is that? That's 5 hours.
I mean, that is all daunting, man. I don't know how you're saying it like 60 pages
Just
an hour. That's
simply-
not a big deal. I don't know what that means, man. Okay, wait, let me ask the other two, our engineers in the room. 60 pages an hour, you think that's easy? No, it's not. Amit, what are you saying?
Yeah.
Okay, but
Yeah.
that's, I don't feel like I'm particularly
I was
fast when
traveling in
I
the train
read.
today when I was coming to office.
No,
I
but you
could
can't
barely
read while
read
you-
14
no, but-
pages
but
in half an
When you're
hour.
in motion, that's different, no?
Hmm.
In motion is different, right? I'm like sitting on my sofa and just reading aram se. And maybe it's not 60, maybe it's 50. But I mean, like, it's something like that.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
50, 60 pages an hour. Yeah.
Are you a fan of audiobook?
I have heard audiobooks. I wouldn't say that I'm a huge fan of audiobooks.
Okay.
I read much faster.
Do you like it when I like audiobooks more than the okay? I understand I read a lot faster, but I like audiobooks when the author itself is the one doing the narrating because they add like extra flair and
Depends.
You know?
Do you know who does the audiobooks for Harry Dresden?
No.
Have you ever seen Buffy the Vampire Slayer?
yeah, I know the show.
Spike.
Oh, okay. Wow.
The
I
actor
get it.
the actor who plays Spike, James
Huh.
Marsters,
He plays
he
Dresden.
plays, and it's all first person, right? So he literally
Wow.
plays Dresden in the audiobooks.
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah,
that's
and
very
they're
good.
really good, right? I think there's one book he didn't do, but he's done all the 17 other books, 16 other books.
Very cool.
But I like audiobooks. I mean, but I prefer to read.
Yeah, even I can't do audiobooks. Most of the times that I've tried listening to audiobooks, I've slept.
Okay, that's
mean,
I don't know what to say
Maybe it's
about
about the book. I don't know, but I've tried it multiple times. Yeah.
Man. Okay. What I would like to recommend is a Netflix movie, which I kind of liked. I just saw it. It's a very casual watch. Check out Red Notice.
I heard about that.
Yeah.
It's been on social all over
Yeah,
the
yeah,
place. There's
of
like
course.
some kind of treasure hunt or something.
So it's basically starring Ryan Reynolds, Dwayne Johnson, and Gal Gadot.
Yeah.
Already it's gonna
You can't
be
go wrong.
super.
Yeah,
you can't. And
There's
yeah, it's
something
about they're like art thieves.
Yeah, there's something about movie star movies, right? And these are 3 movie stars, right? All 3 of them are like big
movies.
They're
Exactly.
stars, you know.
Yeah,
I mean, like they're not actors. Rosamund Pike's an actor. These guys are stars. You know what I mean?
Exactly. That's
Yeah.
exactly it. So exactly, they already were pretty safe making this movie, but it's a very casual, entertaining, simple watch where Dwayne Johnson is doing what he does best, playing the roles that he does best, like a secret agent who is after like this dude who is now the Ryan Reynolds plays like the wise cracking sarcastic guy that he plays in almost like his Deadpool-esque kind of character, and Gal Gadot again is very similar to her usual roles, not as similar to her, of course, Wonder Woman role because that's a very unique role, but very similar to her other roles. It's a simple story. These 2 art thieves are trying to get caught by the secret agent played by Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is trying to catch these 2 big art thieves, and both these art thieves think that they are the best art thief in the world, so they are also in competition with each other.
Why am I getting a Dhoom to throw back?
This feels actually 48 hours has to be, but yeah, okay.
But again, it's a very simple, very easy watch. I would say I would really like, and I really like the chemistry between Ryan Reynolds and Dwayne Johnson in this.
I enjoy these kinds of movies, right? You have big stars doing big star things. It's always fun. It's like like if you think about it, Ocean's 11, Ocean's 12, such a ridiculous concept, but so much fun to watch.
So fun. I actually don't like 12. I like 11 and 13 a lot.
I like 11, 12, and 13. I even like Ocean's 8, the Sandra
I never
Bullock.
watched it. Yeah, I never watched it.
Yeah, I like that one too. Listen, movie star stealing shit. I'm in.
That's true. Yeah. Oh no, I will tell you one you won't like is that Hotel Heist. Is that the one with Eddie Murphy and Ben Stiller?
I do not remember this.
There's the one where they have to steal a car from like the 35th floor of like a hotel or something. It's crazy. It's crazy.
I don't remember this.
I think it's called Hotel Heist. Something Heist, if I'm not wrong. But
I do not remember this. But basically, movie stars stealing stuff is always fun.
Yeah. Pavan, what's your recommendation?
My recommendation is actually adjacent to fantasy. It is fantasy. It's Arcane, the amazing Netflix animated series by Riot Games, which is an extension of the League of Legends universe. Yeah. And I want to tell you here, first of all, they've tied up with this company called Fortiche Productions, which is a French animation company. This is animation on the kind you have not seen before. They've done a unique blend, you could say, of 2D and 3D that's not quite Disney Pixar, that's not quite anime. It's its own thing. The storytelling is compelling. It's sort of 9 40-minute episodes that have all come out now, and they're just laying out the lore, and this is just sort of setting the scene. The storytelling, some of the beats of storytelling visually, they've picked up from anime and elsewhere and made a kick-ass show. And I want to say that they're actually, Riot Games is continuing its tradition of pushing the envelope with media. Just for context, right? League of Legends is this 5 versus 5, one map. You have 100 types of sort of heroes, and you battle it out, right? It's like a cage match almost online, and it's sort of one version of Dota, Defense of the Ancients, right? That was the first version of this, and so League of Legends is huge in Asia, huge in China. But what Riot Games has done with their money is always taken amazing bets. So they've had animated music videos of really high quality coming out now for 6, 7, 8 years. Imagine Dragons is one of their big partners and so on. And each of these animated videos are stunning. They're delightful. And each one of them is an experiment. Beyond that, the Riot Games folks also created a K-pop-like band called KDA, which there are real people who are singing it. There are other people who are sort of performing, and they're using the characters from League of Legends to be the faces of this band. You have not seen the likes of this before. You might know of Hatsune Miku as this, purely sort of generated icon and this from Japan, but nothing like KDA exists. And they have a couple of really cool songs out there. And now they're doing the same with Arcane, where they're really, really pushing the bounds of what is imaginable. So go watch Arcane. It doesn't matter if you never want to play League of Legends as a game, you will still enjoy the show.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. I would agree. That brings us to the end of the recommendations and the episode. What an eventful episode. Thanks, Pavan, for joining us. Thanks, Amit, for joining us. And we'll see you guys all next week.
If you're a cricket fan, check out Edges and Sledges, India's favorite cricket podcast.
The podcast focuses on Indian cricket, the IPL, and has a ton of banter both on and off the field.
We talk about the week's biggest cricket stories with current and ex-international cricketers, coaches, or sometimes just between us.
And it's hosted by me, DJ.
Me, Varun.
And me, Ashwin.
New episodes release every week.
You can catch us on the IVM Podcast's website, app,
or wherever you get your podcasts from.
Check out the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast.
Given the unprecedented times our nation is going through, where positive is now a dreaded word, Smile India gets you delightful news from across the country about people and places that continue to spread the much-needed hope and positive vibes. I am Shifa Maitra, and you can hear Smile India with me every Thursday on the IVM app, website, or wherever you get your podcasts from. Oh, and did I tell you Smile India is available in both English and Hindi.